Tonight, tasered and handcuffed on a plane. Anger over an airline arrest. Police identification and equipment seized in a bogus officer shock. A cruise ship called in to rescue a couple left helpless in rough seas 12 kilometres offshore. A new confrontation for a controversial campaigner as the fallout over a protest threatens to split the Liberals. Easter relief for home buyers as the RBA points to a rates pause next month. And the AFL verdict on a big hit, the latest from the tribunal.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. Police are being accused of heavy-handed treatment after the arrest of a Melbourne father on a plane. The man was tasered, handcuffed and dragged off a Jetstar flight in front of his family and hundreds of passengers.
Showdown on the tarmac.
You come with us voluntarily or we're going to grab you.
As a Melbourne father is dragged off a Jetstar flight at Perth Airport. Minutes later, he's tasered by federal police after a tense confrontation on board flight JQ977.
I'm leading from the Australian Federal Police at Perth Airport.
Thank you.
Grab your stuff and come off the aircraft.
What have I done wrong?
We will talk about that off the aircraft.
You have a warrant?
All of that time he sat quietly. He was playing with his little boy. He never stood up. He never yelled at anybody.
The 30-year-old has been banned from flying with Jetstar. The airline says its crew called police when the customer became abusive.
Yeah, my body camera's on and it's recording all of this.
It's alleged he repeatedly refused to move to his assigned seat.
Right now.
What have I done wrong? Anybody, has I done anything wrong? I've been sitting here all this time.
The captain has asked you to come off. So you're coming off.
The flight from Perth to Melbourne was delayed by an hour.
I did verbalise that I thought it was a very horrible and awful and unnecessary situation, and I called out to the cabin manager. I said, can you go and make sure that that woman and that little boy are okay? Because
Bolik Malou faced the Perth Magistrates Court yesterday, charged with disorderly behaviour on the aircraft and for allegedly assaulting police. Federal police say their officers were required to taser the 30-year-old in order to restrain him. Malou must remain in Perth until his next court date. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
An authentic Victoria Police ID badge has been found at the home of a young couple accused of posing as detectives. Police say the con involved robbing innocent people on the roads and in their home. Cassie Zervos joins us now. And Cassie, that's just one alarming development in this case.
Well, Mitch, I can confirm they not only found a legitimate Victoria Police ID, but handcuffs as well. It's alleged they used them to fool people into believing they were detectives, along with 2 other men. Just moments ago, police confirmed one of those men is now behind bars. The other remains on the run. Abney Lacey and her boyfriend Zach Perry are accused of posing as police to terrorise, steal and hold members of the public against their will. Family members learned the details in court. What do you think of the allegations that she posed as a police officer and terrorised an innocent family who have children? 25-year-old Lacey, her boyfriend and 2 other men wore suits, blue lanyards, blue gloves and held clipboards when they allegedly used a fake search warrant to get inside a Whittington home, holding the family of 4 hostage before ransacking the property. Stealing mobile phones, a CCTV hard drive, $10,000 in a safe and 2 cars. Is there anything you want to say on behalf of your daughter? The court also heard how the gang stopped 2 men on Solar Drive, stealing mobile phones and wallets.
This is a situation which is quite worrying because at the end of the day, it's damn if you do and damn if you don't as a citizen.
Today, the magistrate said the offending that's alleged was planned and would have been frightening for each of the complainants. I'm troubled by the prospect of the applicant being released on bail. Zachary Perry was flanked by prison guards as he sobbed in the dock, pleading with the magistrate to grant him bail. But when it was denied, he stood up and screamed, "This is cooked," before storming out back down to the cells. Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
A cruise ship has come to the rescue of two sailors forced to abandon their boat off Wilson's Promontory. Cameron Bowe joins us now from Port Melbourne. And Cameron, it was an eventful day for passengers on the Grand Princess.
Peter, the thousands of passengers on board the ship for the next cruise are hoping that the drama is over. The previous trip saw a seriously ill passenger evacuated and the ship deferred for a rescue in rough conditions on Bass Strait. Stranded off Skull Rock, a dive boat skipper and his deckhand plucked to safety.
It was just fortunate enough that they had a cruise liner, of that size, was able to get there relatively fast.
After running out of fuel on a trip from Queenscliff to Port Albert, the dive boat began to take on water. Skipper Paul Serbo and his 28-year-old female deckhand abandoned ship for a dinghy after radioing for help and activating an emergency locator beacon.
Without carrying that safety equipment, the radios, the EPIRBs, everything that we always promote, this could have been a different story.
En route to Melbourne from New Zealand, the Grand Princess answered the call for help. With 3,700 people on board, it diverted north just after midnight. It looped back east before being guided to the pier by the police air wing. A fast rescue boat with cruise ship staff on board completed the rescue before passengers were notified.
I think they were very professional, the cruise ship.
Having such a big ship in the vicinity was a massive stroke of luck for the stricken pair. The rough conditions made it unsafe for the air wing to use a winch, while the Grand Princess was well equipped to help. Earlier the same day, the cruise ship had another medical emergency on board. A male passenger was winched to safety by an air ambulance and flown to hospital. Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
A Liberal MP is defending her involvement in a controversial protest as the fallout threatens to split her party. The move to expel Moira Deeming opened up a bitter internal battle, while the rally ringleader was caught in another fiery showdown.
As the Posey Parker Roadshow was put to the test in Tassie, the Liberal Party was mopping up her mess here in Melbourne.
That rally was a nasty, hateful event long before anyone offered up the Nazi salute. And you might say that the Liberal Party, are increasingly becoming a nasty, hateful little rabble.
Moira Deeming, who helped organise the anti-trans rally at the weekend, snuck into Parliament in the back seat of a fellow MP's car.
Moira, do you mind if we speak to you?
Letting her colleagues run the gauntlet, some sharing their views on if she should be kicked out of the party room.
Kicking Pete out of the party is a big move and has to be done with great caution.
To expel someone from the Liberal Party, it's got to be a serious hanging offence. And for my mind, I still have to understand what that hanging offence actually is.
Others were a little more reserved.
He just asked me, do I have any opinion? And I said, nope.
The Upper House MP eventually made her way to a 2-hour party room meeting where a senior MP's attempt to stop her expulsion was defeated, meaning John Pesutto's vote will go ahead on Monday.
Do you have the numbers, John?
I'm confident, as I've said, that the party understands why I'm doing this, and I don't want to preempt it too much.
The vote to oust Moira Deeming is John Pesutto's first big move as Liberal leader, but if it fails, it could be his last, with Liberal insiders telling 7 News he'll have no choice but to resign.
It's not good enough to say one thing on Fitzroy Street and another thing on Spring Street. You're either for equality or you're not. You're either a member of this government or you're a Liberal.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
And the Premier is warning Victorians to brace for upcoming budget pain as the state struggles to contain record debt. Bethan Yeoman has the latest from Spring Street, and Beth, Daniel Andrews is drawing a line in the sand.
Mitch, the Premier's cash splash is well and truly over as the hangover from the COVID era begins to bite. Daniel Andrews today gave his sternest warning yet. The May's budget will make for tough reading. At the current rate, Victoria's debt is set to hit $165 billion by 2026. And with rising interest rates, the government says it's time to rein in spending.
This is going to be a challenging budget, and there's no other way. Just as your interest rates have gone up on your mortgage, The government's interest rates have gone up. Our job is to rebalance our budget and end this period where we are running the state on borrowed money. We can't continue to do that.
The arts industry is already bracing to take a hit, with reports it needs more than $200 million of taxpayer money to avoid mass job losses and forced asset sales. Mitch?
Bethan Yeoman at State Parliament, thank you. World climate experts have issued a stark warning that the planet is approaching the brink of no return with global warming. It comes as the federal government scrambles to keep its promise to lower emissions.
In a world ravaged by record temperatures, floods and fires, a final warning.
The climate time bomb is ticking.
But the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's sixth and last report says leaders can buy time and limit global warming to 1.5 degrees by phasing out coal by 2030 and reaching net zero by 2040, a decade earlier than Australia's deadline. China isn't until 2060, India 2070, warning that not taking drastic action will put 3.5 billion people at risk, including in the Pacific Islands. But the government is sticking to its targets: 43% emissions reduction by 2030, net zero by 2050.
Labor is giving the United Nations the middle finger.
And Labor fears the Greens flipping it the same gesture, threatening to block its key climate bill, toughening the so-called safeguard mechanism. The Greens are demanding higher emissions reductions and
no new coal and gas.
The minister warning,
if the safeguard mechanism reforms are not passed, 43% will not be met.
The mechanism sets emissions limits for Australia's top 215 polluters, reducing by 4.9% a year. The coalition opposes it, wanting a new look at nuclear.
Labor don't want to have a conversation about nuclear because it's going to blow them up.
This coalition of cookers wants to put our future prosperity and our future economy at risk.
Political temperatures rising
to the old buffet
as the UN warns
humanity is on thin ice, and that ice is melting fast.
Mark Riley, 7 News.
There's been high tension as China's President Xi touched down in Russia for 3 days of meetings with Vladimir Putin. Russia scrambled fighter jets to the Baltic Sea when 2 US bombers flew towards its border just as the talks started.
His arrival broadcast live on Russian TV. Xi Jinping, the leader backing Vladimir Putin. The emboldened Chinese president keen to show he's a global power player, the first world leader to visit Moscow since a warrant was issued for the Russian president's arrest for war crimes. 2 dictators deciding what might happen next. They called each other dear friends. The Kremlin needs Beijing to fill the economic hole left by Western sanctions. Neither mentioned the war in public. Vladimir Putin called the conflict in Ukraine an acute crisis, as both hit out at the US and NATO. Putin labelling American diktat acute and assertive. The 3-day state visit will include talks on China's 12-point plan for an end to the war in Ukraine that would effectively let Russia take the land it's already claimed. The West views China's apparent peace efforts with scepticism, fearing a ceasefire now could just allow Russia to rearm, potentially with Beijing's help. Despite claiming to be neutral, President Xi is yet to pick up the phone to Volodymyr Zelensky.
The world should not be fooled by any tactical move by Russia, supported by China or any other country, to freeze the war on its own terms.
This visit being forensically examined for any sign a real deal might be brokered. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
Back home, and a court has heard the driver accused of killing a 16-year-old girl in a crash on Lygon Street is withdrawing from drugs. Police allege Gulet Ahmed ran a string of red lights before the collision that left 5 people in hospital. The 40-year-old from Essendon was detained by witnesses at the scene. He will remain in custody until his next court appearance in August. Home buyers could be in for some Easter relief, with the Reserve Bank considering a pause on interest rate hikes. It's welcome news for house hunters, as new data reveals Melbourne is now the 8th most unaffordable city in the world to buy a home.
After 10 straight cash rate hikes, finally relief is in sight for mortgage holders.
I think that would be certainly welcome.
Today, the RBA revealed its board has agreed to reconsider the case for a rate pause, recognising it would allow additional time to reassess the outlook for the economy.
That's going to make an enormous amount of difference and just bring some confidence back in.
Banking, turmoil overseas and the prediction that inflation has already peaked, key factors likely to weigh heavily on the Reserve Bank's next board meeting.
It's so, congratulations to our...
New data shows housing affordability, or how much income you need to meet repayments, has worsened in Melbourne as interest rates have risen. We're now ranked the 8th most unaffordable city in the world, with house prices almost 10 times the median household income. Melbourne more expensive than the likes of New York and London.
And if you look at the top 10, most of those places are desirable places to live. Affordability is an issue really dictated by government regulation, stamp duty, those sorts of things.
There is brighter news for first home buyers. Falling prices, higher savings rates and a bump up in wages growth means it now takes around 6 months less to save a deposit compared to this time last year.
A time machine has really been provided. It takes a couple 5 years and 7 months to save for an entry 20% deposit on a house.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
The AFL Tribunal is set to send a message tonight. Tim Watson, it's the first big case of the season.
It is, Mitch. Tonight's verdict will set a new benchmark for the bump as a star Crow faces the music. Andrew McCormack is covering the hearing for us. And Andrew, a premiership coach, has already declared the bump is dead.
Well, Tim, if we thought the bump was on life support in modern-day footy, then Simon Goodwin delivered its last rites this morning. This comes on the back of Cozzy Pickett's 2-match ban for bumping Bulldog Bailey Smith in round 1. Now, Goodwin has made it absolutely clear to his players that the bump is simply no longer an option.
There's no element in the game where we should be bumping. And that's the message I've given to our playing group. There's always the way you use your body with your shoulder in contest situations, but not in a bumping sense. I think our game is about tackling. There's no need to bump. I think it is dead. Yeah.
Adelaide's Shane McAdam is fronting the tribunal at the moment. Closing submissions just about to wrap up after his brutal round 1 bump against the Giants. We'll hopefully have a verdict for you in a bit of a landmark case for the bump in 2023 coming up shortly in sport, Tim.
Thanks, Andrew. Also ahead in sport, the Cats Stars racing the clock to face the Blues while a premiership star floats a new father-son idea. The latest on a fresh fitness fight for Taylor Adams ahead of a clash with Port. And we'll tell you which rival star inspired Harry Sheezel to round 1 success. Mitch, I'll see you again soon.
OK, Tim, thank you very much. A thief has left police stunned by stealing a donation tin from right under their noses. That's coming up next. Also ahead, refunds refused as fans lash out in a monster truck row. Trump tension leads to a ring of steel in New York. Later, see the road safety cameras that detect drunk drivers without pulling them over.
And I'll have the latest on a humid few days later in 7 News.
Social media platform TikTok could be banned from all Australian government devices after a major security review. There are concerns the Chinese company could be engaging in espionage by sending personal information to Beijing.
The manner in which the data is hoovered up and used not for a commercial purpose but certainly to try and influence whole populations is a very disturbing element of this.
A decision on the ban will be made later this year. The US, UK and New Zealand have already acted. A promoter is refusing to issue refunds in a storm over a monster truck show. Hundreds of angry fans are demanding their money back, but all they're getting is an apology.
It was billed as a monster truck grand final. Fans say it was a fizzer.
It was basically a monster truck show and there was no monster trucks. There were 6 sitting there and they only brought 3 out.
Instead, they saw drift car and burnout drivers who told 7 News they performed at the show at Calder Park on Saturday at their own expense.
Basically, we paid to see monster trucks. I didn't pay to go see
2 cars drift around a track for 10 minutes.
One organiser blamed confusion over the start time. Gates opened at midday, but the main entertainment got underway in the evening.
And people were leaving saying, oh, that's the worst show that we've ever seen. But it was only 4 o'clock. That is the big confusion factor that I'm trying to figure out myself.
Some families had paid more than $200 for tickets.
It was nothing that was advertised. It was cheap and nasty, and do your research of your venues if you're going to have it somewhere that you've never had it before and make it proper.
Every comment that's negative hurts me, and I'm sorry that people should walk away with that feeling.
Fans say they had high expectations after seeing slick and well-organised productions in the city featuring monster truck entertainment.
I've been to Monster Mania and they're organised down to a T. Like food, merchandise, water.
The promoter's website states this company offers a nil refund policy. Calder Park says it won't be dealing with this company again. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Nearly 4,000 Australians need to donate blood over the next week to ensure there is enough supply for Easter. The Red Cross Lifeblood says they urgently need people who are A, B and O positive and universal O negative. A record number of Australians are donating blood, but the demand from hospitals is at its highest level in a decade. New York prosecutors appear ready to arrest former US President Donald Trump sometime tonight for paying off a pornographic movie star. If that happens, police are preparing for possible riots.
A ring of steel around Manhattan's criminal court. New York police preparing for an indictment America's never seen before, that of a former president.
We're in a surreal place right now.
Totally surreal.
Really surreal.
Donald Trump is under investigation for hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 election. As Republicans rally around him tonight.
Now they're coming after him for some alleged bookkeeping error. You've got to be kidding me.
A rival within the party taking a thinly veiled swipe.
I don't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star to secure silence over some type of alleged affair. I can't speak to that.
Donald Trump sounding resigned to prosecution, telling supporters today, if media leaks are correct, this could be the last time I write to you before a possible indictment comes down. Patriots like you are the source of my courage, my resolve and my hope. Together, we will prove them wrong once again. His one-time fixer claims it was Trump who gave him the $130,000 to buy Daniels' silence.
If they want to go after Donald Trump and they have solid evidence, so be it. But Michael Cohen is far from solid evidence.
A murky case far from over. In the United States, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
Back home again, and a thief has stolen a charity donation tin from the front counter of a city police station. As he waited for attention, the opportunistic thief reached under the Perspex barrier, grabbed the tin and took off. It happened just before 10 p.m. on March the 9th. Detectives say he's aged around 40. Melbourne's southeast and eastern suburbs are taking a big hit in the scramble to find somewhere to live. We'll have a breakdown next. Also coming up, the simple act that left a woman fighting for life in Burwood. First, GP visits and chemists, now Airbnb. How supermarkets are fighting for more of your money. And a man's close call with a runaway truck. A woman in her 60s has been struck by a truck while rushing to catch a tram in Melbourne's east. Emergency crews were called to help the woman before she was taken to hospital by ambulance in a critical condition with life-threatening injuries. It happened just before 7 this morning on the Burwood Highway. The truck driver stopped to assist. He was not injured. Australia is set to miss its plastics recycling target. A commitment to recycle 70% of plastic waste by 2025 will almost certainly not be met. It's prompted this warning to the big companies producing plastic waste.
If they don't lift their game, I will regulate.
New data shows the rate has stagnated at around 16% for the past 3 years. The cost of renting in Melbourne is surging, and it's in the southeast where tenants are feeling it the most. Jade Vincent has the data, and Jade, this is central to the cost of living crunch.
Mitch, the past 12 months have seen rental supply drastically reduce and demand intensify, and that's a recipe for significant rises in weekly rent. A house at Black Rock, Sorrento or Summers will now cost you between $170 and $180 more per week. Closer in, St Kilda West is also up $170, Caulfield $150 and Glen Huntly $140. For units, the CBD itself has jumped the highest, $150 extra a week to $530. Across the river in Southbank, tenants will pay a further $130, while in Melbourne's east, a unit at Wheelers Hill is up $90 a week, with median rent of $520. The bad news is experts say the pressure on the rental market is likely to get worse.
Without anything meaningful on the horizon to really, I guess, provide a release valve or reprieve for tenants in terms of increasing the supply of properties that are available to rent, these conditions are likely to continue for some time.
If you are trying to get into a rental, agents say consider a suburb over. That might be the difference of $100. Mitch?
Jade Vincent, thank you. Media mogul Rupert Murdoch is set to head down the aisle again at the age of 92. Less than a year after his divorce from fourth wife Jerry Hall, the billionaire is now engaged to girlfriend Anne Leslie Smith. He met the 66-year-old former police chaplain last September and popped the question on St Patrick's Day. Rupert Murdoch says he had dreaded falling in love again, but knows this one will be the last. A pedestrian has come incredibly close to being hit by a truck after the handbrake was left off. The vehicle rolled backwards off the road and across a footpath. The man appeared to have only realised the truck was out of control as it passed in front of him. It came to a stop after smashing into fences. Woolworths is expanding into healthcare, offering cheap and quick online GP appointments. The supermarket giant says it's to help tackle Australia's health crisis, but industry experts fear the consequences could be dangerous.
Bread, milk and now telehealth appointments, all on offer through the Woolworths Group.
Would you trust Woolworths with your healthcare needs?
No, I wouldn't. No.
Why not?
I don't know, just they're a supermarket, they sell food, not healthcare.
The supermarket giant launched the Healthy Life website in 2021, initially to sell products like vitamins and skincare. In December, they joined forces with a pharmacy group, and now they've taken it one step further, launching GP and dietitian telehealth appointments.
This is a business and marketing opportunity from Woolworths. This is not a healthcare solution.
GP appointments start from $45, medical certificates are just $25, dietitians and nutritionists start from $115. And you can arrange for prescriptions to be delivered to your house using the same site.
I guess if it's all included in one, it would be good.
But the Royal Australasian College of GPs says the business model puts patients in danger and they should be going to their usual doctor who understands their history.
Fragmenting care like this, where people are just popping up and using a telehealth service, puts people at risk.
Woolworths isn't the only supermarket branching out into new industries. Coles is heading in a different direction. They've partnered with Airbnb to offer discount holidays.
Launching tomorrow, the offer's available through their site business, giftcards.com.
For the first time, customers could get 15% off their Airbnb travel just by buying an Airbnb gift card.
Oh yeah, I could take holidays from a supermarket, yeah.
Christy Cooper, 7 News.
Drunk drivers could soon be busted by cameras that can dob them into police. See how they work next on 7 News. Also, AFL stars doing it for the kids ahead of the Good Friday appeal. The fox with a fetish for footwear in Melbourne's northeast. And just before the weather, Easter eggs caught up in the cost of living crunch. New safety cameras are set to hit Victoria's streets to catch out drug and impaired drivers. A Melbourne company is using artificial intelligence to develop the technology that can spot motorists who shouldn't be behind the wheel.
It looks like a video game, but IT experts believe this simulator will drive down deaths on our roads.
When you look at drivers who are involved in fatal accidents, 40% of those drivers actually have drugs and alcohol in their system.
It's collecting data from sober and drunk drivers using artificial intelligence.
We're trying to assess how well the driver can keep within the lane, keep to the posted speed limit.
To analyse the driving patterns and reaction times of motorists under the influence.
How does a screening know if they're an impaired driver or just a really bad driver? Yeah, that's a bit of a challenge, and that's exactly why we're doing so many trials in the simulator.
Melbourne tech company AccuSensus has already developed mobile phone cameras, but impairment cameras are set to make our roads even safer. It's essentially taking the randomness out of random drug testing. The camera will be able to determine if a driver is exhibiting bad or impaired behaviour. An alert will then be forwarded onto the police so that motorists can be pulled over. Once the data collection is complete, the technology will be developed into cameras and then put to the test on the street.
If we can arm police with the right tools to fix and address this problem, those crashes will really come down. In Australia, hundreds of lives could be saved, 20 times that in hospitalisations.
Tegan Dolling, 7 News.
Time now for a check on the markets with finance editor Gemma Acton. Gemma, finally some good news for investors.
Indeed, Peter, the ASX 200 took the lead from a resurgent Wall Street overnight, with the vast majority of local shares finishing today in the green. All of the big four banks closed higher in what was a solid session for financials. The Aussie dollar dipped back under 67 US cents overnight, while late yesterday iron ore had its biggest drop since January. And we heard earlier that the Reserve Bank is considering a pause in rate hikes next month. Some big events it will have its eye on as it makes its decision are tonight's Federal Reserve meeting in the US and next week's local inflation and retail sales reports. Peter.
Gemma Acton reporting. Footy stars from all codes have delighted patients at the Royal Children's Hospital as the countdown begins to the Good Friday appeal. Organisers are working around the clock to prepare for the big day with a record tally in sight.
Alex Graham broke his jaw at footy training. His first visitor at the Royal Children's Hospital, Kangaroos full forward Nick Larkey.
Nice to meet you, bud. How's things?
For the first time this year, North Melbourne will play the Blues on Good Friday.
So hopefully we can be more competitive and make it a good game for the fans.
But today was about the kids, players from both sides joining with stars from the Melbourne Storm, Melbourne Ice, Melbourne United and Melbourne Mustangs to bring a smile to sick children ahead of the Good Friday appeal.
Oh my God, it's made my entire day. I freaked out. I'm shaking still, you can see it.
The charity drive striking a chord for Blues midfielder George Hewitt, whose young son Henry was born 12 weeks premature.
And that was a great thing about the nurses and the doctors. They made it, very smooth.
Last year, the Good Friday appeal raised a record $22,328,000 for the Royal Children's Hospital. This year, they're hoping to exceed that target. You don't have to be a famous sports star to help. Every dollar from everyday Victorians counts. Jodie Lee, 7 News.
Looking forward to it. A sly fox has been caught stealing shoes from a family's porch in Melbourne's northeast. At first, the wife was blaming the husband for losing his thongs. But after the Watsonia family looked at their security video, they realised Dad wasn't to blame. The fox has returned twice now and taken 2 thongs and a shoe. The family's learned its lesson and now keeps everything inside the house. Common sense. Sport is next with Tim Watson. And Tim, there's been a bizarre admission from a premiership cat.
There has, Mitch, and it comes just days out from a round 2 blockbuster. Up next, the Cats might be in cotton wool, but that won't stop the Blues from pulling out all stops. The Demons in line for a return before heading into the Lions' den. We'll tell you which rival star this young Roo replicated for his round 1 success, and the Socceroos out to continue their World Cup heroics. Welcome back. It's not panic stations at Geelong yet, despite the Premier's nursing a host of injuries ahead of Thursday night's blockbuster against Carlton. It comes as Jeremy Cameron revealed the full extent of his off-season celebrations.
3 sleeps from a date with 2 Coleman medalists. Slow steps for Sam de Koning. The Cats hopeful he'll recover from a knee complaint in time for Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay. In her backline minus Tom Stewart, staring down a pair of losses.
I don't think 0 and 2's panic stations at all. I think by the time you get to sort of round 8 or 9, you want to be 4 and 4, 5 and 4.
Jack Bowes in line for a Cats debut. A heavily corked calf restricting Tom Hawkins off the 6-day break as his partner in crime offered a tongue-in-cheek premiership admission.
I tell you what, a month after the grand final, I felt like the furthest thing from an athlete. I guess the first steps on the road to 2023 were horrible. The knee blew up and bloody limping down the road 300 metres in, skin folds are over 120.
September's triumph, Smith's 4th flag, but first in Cats colours and with kids Isla and Emmett.
I've always said, even before I got a premiership with Geelong, that if you're a premiership player, you should fall into the father-son.
Carlton's own father-son taking time out at the Royal Children's Hospital. The Blues wary of the wounded Cats.
They're a premiership team for a reason, so we're not going to go in thinking that.
Light duties for Magpie Taylor Adams after a foot concern in Friday night's win over the Cats.
Hey, stuff, he'll be right.
Pies Live Wire, Beau McCreary helping kids in Fitzroy ahead of Saturday's MCG meeting with Port Adelaide. Anzac Day today deemed a public and AFL reserve sellout. Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
After losing their number 1 draft pick in the off-season, the Kangaroos have already locked away this year's prized young gun. Harry Sheezel has a new deal to go with his dazzling debut.
1 game, 34 disposals and a new 2-year deal. Not a bad start to AFL footy for Harry Sheezel.
I'm really excited to be here for as long as possible, hopefully.
The best debut in 32 years. Even had Aussie cricket legend and North Melbourne number 1 fan Ricky Ponting drooling on Twitter. Going to enjoy watching Sheezel for a long time. What a debut.
I saw a tweet. That was pretty cool to see that, and then a few players from other clubs. Like star players, which was, it was cool to see.
Alistair Clarkson wants to mould the 18-year-old into North's own Nick Dacos off half-back.
I've watched a bit of his vision recently, and that's kind of how Clarko introduced the idea to me. Just how much freedom he played with and how good he was at starting their offence and playing with like that freedom and using his decision-making, composure. 4
premiership Ds are set to return for Friday night's trip to the Gabba. May, Viney, Fritsch and Salem all trained strongly this morning. Tomlinson, Laurie and McVie, the unlucky Ds, likely to make way. Last year's semi-final loss to the Lions still fresh in the coach's memory bank.
They did some things to us in that final that we'll be ready for. There's a bit of a rivalry building between the 2 clubs in terms of how we go about our footy, and we get a chance to have a look at some of the things that we've implemented post that final series.
And more injury pain at the Saints. Tim Membry still 4 to 6 weeks away after knee surgery. Defender Jimmy Webster sidelined for up to 2 games with a broken hand, while Jack Bytel was hospitalised with a cut to the knee in the win over Fremantle. Now, the AFL Tribunal is still deliberating in the Shane McAdam case. They've been doing so for over 35 minutes now, so they're certainly taking their time. The Crows say any contact to the chin of Jacob Ware was insignificant. The AFL has argued that the potential to cause injury is a must in this case, and therefore it demands a severe impact and a likely 3-match ban. The Crows say that that potential to cause injury argument is simply wrong, so a real test case playing out before us here, Tim. The wait continues. We'll update you on a verdict on 7news.com.au as soon as it comes to hand.
Thanks, Macca. The battle for a place in Graham Arnold's Socceroos squad for the Asian Cup in June starts on Friday night. Howell Marble has returned from his club in Prague as the Young Australian of the Year, while other teammates are still basking in their achievements in Qatar.
I definitely still enjoy it, and it's a clip I've probably watched thousands of times.
I think he showed us his goal more than he's watched it himself.
After the clash in Sydney, they'll come to Melbourne for Game 2 on Tuesday night. Any support for Isaac Smith's idea or not?
What, the father-son?
The father-son after a premiership?
Automatically becomes a...
I'm not sure it's going to get a lot of support.
Needs a bit more work.
A lot more work.
Take it back.
Let's stick with 100 games.
Back to the drawing board. Thank you, Tim. The cost of living crunch is set to hit Easter celebrations, with chocolate eggs costing more than ever. Our special report is coming up next, as well as Jane Bunn with the forecast. Jane, that was quite a soggy afternoon.
Rich, tomorrow it does still have some wet weather, but not as much as today. It remains humid. The full details are next.
Hello. Tonight on The Latest, the courageous commended the Governor-General about to unveil Bravery Awards. I'll be joined by a recipient. We'll go live to the US ahead of what Donald Trump says is his imminent arrest. And just add water, we'll speak to the brewer making powdered beer and the real reason behind it. All that live, The Latest at 10:30.
On 7 News, they call it the lipstick effect. Makeup, hair, cosmetic treatments.
Spending anywhere from about $380 to $420 per appointment.
How they're defying the downturn, the recession-busting boom no one saw coming.
Hair is bulletproof. Everyone wants to look good.
7 News with Peter Mitchell at 6 o'clock.
Supermarket shoppers are calling out hefty inflation on Easter egg prices, with one popular favourite now priced at $20 a piece. But there is good news for budget buyers, with Coles and Woolworths already starting to discount chocolate stock.
Bunnies by the box full, aisles chock-a-block.
What's your favourite Easter egg?
Dark chocolate one.
We can never get enough.
But the cost of chocolate bunnies and eggs is leaving a sour taste for some.
Oh no, too expensive.
Everything is going up. Everything is up.
Shoppers are sharing their shock online. $20 for this otherwise ordinary egg, $200 for this Ferrero choc tree, $122 for this big lint bunny.
Did you ever pay $122 for an Easter bunny like this?
Oh no, it's so expensive.
Well, it is a kilo of Lindt chocolate, so possibly.
We checked catalogue prices from last year. Lindt's standard gold bunny has hopped from $7 to $8, the Cadbury equivalent jumping from $8 to $10, and the classic Ferrero collection is up $2 as well.
Easter eggs are not immune to food price inflation, and Easter could possibly be one of those necessities that we'll probably cut back on a little bit this year.
Despite the price hike, supermarkets say hunting for Easter specials hasn't been this easy in years. Coles and Woolworths are already discounting eggs with more than 2 weeks to go.
Input costs, energy costs, the cost that our suppliers are facing, price of Easter eggs is harder to remain the same as it was last year.
Annie Puller, 7 News.
Now here's Jane with the weather.
Thanks, Mitch. We had rain falling this afternoon and thunderstorms to our north and east. Under a cracking sunrise, it was 11.7, as chilly as 6 in the outer east. That colour turned to grey. Then rain arrived and we stopped rising at 19. The rain produced a millimetre or two as it moved through, but it is heavier in the outer east with 5 to 15 millimetres. As the rain set in, the air out there changed. Step outside and you'll find yourself enveloped in moisture. Very different from this morning. It is cool out there but humid. The rain is patchy over Western Victoria with only a local storm. But as it hit the humid air of the northeast, it really exploded into a large area of rain with widespread thunderstorms. These are delivering 10 to 20 millimetres. Now there's a big difference in temperature. Mid-afternoon it was 30 in Mildura and only 16 in Wangaratta. High pressure has formed a jelly bean shape just to our south. It is cradling Victoria in here and pushing a trough right down into the middle. The heavier falls are on and east of that trough line as the high shape pushes in moist air from the Pacific. The pattern lingers for a few days, but the trough will retreat northwards. So here's the big area of rain and thunderstorms that is in the east right now. That will continue moving southwards, crossing Gippsland tonight as a weaker area of rain and some storms too, and continues in the northeast through here right through into the morning. Further thunderstorms redevelop tomorrow afternoon. They're about the central and eastern ranges in through here and up over southern New South Wales. This map shows that the west misses out. The heavier falls are east of that trough line. Northeastern Victoria could see 30 to 60 millimetres, 10 to 30, locally 40 in Gippsland. Around the nation tomorrow, partly cloudy in Sydney. There's the risk of showers and storms in western suburbs and Canberra too. Hobart remains dry but sees cloud from this. Warm and sunny in Adelaide and Perth, showery in Brisbane, particularly in the morning. In Victoria, high humidity and light easterly winds lead to patchy morning fog. Rain and thunderstorms could persist into the morning in the east. Then, after a dry break, we'll see another round of storms about the central and eastern ranges and southern New South Wales. Closer in, areas of foggy cloud, then areas of sunshine, but that's interrupted by local showers, mainly over the north and east and during the afternoon. Storms should remain up on the ranges. It is humid out there, a mix of sun and cloud. Top of of 23. There's a chance of light showers. It should be dry for much of the time, not like the persistent rain of this afternoon. On the 8-day outlook, we have further light showers about on Thursday. They could be heavier in northern suburbs. As we head into Friday, it cools down. 21 on Saturday, 20 on Sunday. Some light rain later and then heavier next Tuesday. Humid at 23 tomorrow. Mix of sun and cloud. There is the chance of light showers, but dry for much of the time.
OK, thanks very much, Jane. Now here's what's on Sunrise in the morning.
Thanks, Mitch. Tomorrow on Sunrise, the myth of the 8-hour sleep.
New scientific evidence set to change your bedroom habits. See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Tuesday, the 21st of March. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.